HTMX versus React. These are two web frameworks, and which one's better? Are they the same? No, they're definitely not the same. We can compare them, though. You know what? One's going to be better in one situation, and one's going to be better in a different situation. Which one's going to be better in which one? Thank you to Antonello Zanini and Dan Ackerson. We received some details here from this post saying that the ultimate goal of HTMX is to provide a modern browser interactivity directly within HTML. So that's different than React, where React is going to require you to have heavy, deep knowledge of JavaScript or TypeScript, sort of that language core code, compared to HTMX, which eliminates essentially the need for it, so you don't need JavaScript with HTMX. HTMX is still relatively new. It's been out for about 4 years. Ooh, it won second place in 2023 JavaScript Rising Stars. Hey, look at that! Okay, well, you can see which one's more popular in this case here. We see front-end frameworks in 2023 React wins over HTMX. Well, at least if you're going to count it like that, you can say, oh, React won. Though they're not far apart. So did it really? It did. Yeah. It is definitely more popular, it's more prevalent. You'll see React being used in more common scenarios. But React has been out for a really long time. And if you compare that, if HTMX is already right up next to React in this case, that is an interesting proposition. There's got to be a reason for it, right? A reason for why HTMX has rapidly gained popularity. That rapid growth, I would say, really is the simplicity of it, right? The simpler you make a system and the more powerful the end result. Hey, guess what? A lot more folks can now adopt that technology and leverage it. That onboarding helps it shoot and accelerate to get to rise where it's risen so far. Comparing HTMX and React on a table, like we're going to look at various features and capabilities and just overall like status of these two frameworks. We're going to compare them. Which one is which under which conditions? We've got this nice summary table here. We can jump into seeing HTMX versus React comparison. Let's start at the very top. Who built HTMX and who built React? So we've got React was built by Meta, which is, the Facebook, right? So this React has been around for quite a while. It's been out there. So it's gone through multiple iterations, multiple versions, and has matured significantly over the years. HTMX has been developed by Big Sky Software. HTMX actually is an upload. It has been around. There's a prior version to HTMX. It was called something before they renamed it to HTMX. Aha, I found it. All right, HTMX was previously called Intercooler JS, where it was kind of like the 1.0 or the 2.0 of itself, and now we've got HTMX, which is the next evolution of that. So there is some history there too, so they've got some competition side by side. Now we're looking at, they're both open source, the GitHub stars. Now we see the Facebook has been around longer. It's also a factor of magnitude more stars, right? So, it's a significant more number of stars. There is a gotcha in terms of the weight. This is just the default weight, right? This is just the main framework itself. Now, if you're going to be implementing this into a web browser app, React is going to come with DOM requirement as well, and that's going to significantly bloat that number. So we're not necessarily comparing apples to apples in this case. HTMX is very lightweight, and it's going to provide a better user experience. Typically, I see a lot of React apps, and they take a long time to load. They're really slow, really slow. Here's where HTMX shines. The syntax based on HTML and custom attributes, there's no JavaScript. HTMX, you simply interact with HTML and you set attributes, and this helps decide how the user interface is going to be, and that's, I would say, the most important part, right? Because usually user interfaces, they're simply all about being presented information so the user can make a decision then to request for more information or submit new information. And that's about it. There's not really a whole lot more that goes on there, and that's why HTMX can be leveraged in this way, because those are just three common patterns. They're very simple and straightforward. You don't need anything more advanced than that. And then if you start getting into React land, now you need JSX and JavaScript and a much heavier burden. Now you have to know a lot more in order to get into developing a React application. Taking a look at HTMX versus React, we see there's still a lot more to compare when we're looking at both of these web frameworks. Well, React is a little bit further than a web framework because React actually spans all the ecosystems. You can put React anywhere. So it's almost not fair to compare HTMX versus React, although if we do look at the deployments overall, React, it's mostly web-based, right? You're mostly going to be building a web app experience. So that is the majority. There's also React Native, where you see a lot of mobile application develops. There's a whole other sector. And so HTMX cannot compete from a mobile perspective. It can only compete on a web app experience. So we're only comparing web apps in this case. So the goal, let's see here. So we've got HTMX on the left side, React on the right. The goal for HTMX is to add modern interactivity features directly into HTML. The most common interactivity features is presenting user data, right? I need information, I need to request for more information or submit new information, and HTMX does that perfectly. Now React provides a component-based, fully featured UI JavaScript library. You can do anything and everything that you want with React. Though here it's the main challenge, the learning curve. The learning curve for HTMX is super easy, just HTML and attributes. And then you just learn what attributes HTMX has to offer, and then you leverage those attributes. So it's really simple. React, on the other hand, requires you to know a programming language. And not only that, you need to learn the framework itself and its nuances. Even beyond that, JSX, this template type system and an event system, there's just a lot more to it. So it's a steep learning curve comparatively. It's almost not fair comparing HTMX and React when you look at the feature set and the capabilities. React it's more robust. It's been around for a lot longer. You can achieve a lot more with React and even deploy to mobile and mobile native with React Native. HTMX can't do that. It just can't compete there, but it wins in one spot in its simplicity, and it's able to achieve web framework happiness, essentially, developer happiness for web framework. Now let's take a look at the rest of this feature table comparing HTMX on the left side and React on the right side here. We see the features for HTMX is in Ajax requesting, sort of like the ability to fetch data through an API, and some other minor UI features. So it's very simple. It's actually pretty simple, but it solves the major, most common requirement for web applications, just basically web forms and the ability to display information. I mean, that's all a computer really is, right? You've got a computer, you got a screen in front of you, it's giving you information, and then you need a way to be able to click on the screen and request for more information. And that's what HTMX provides. Now, React is a fully composable and has, data bindings and state management and hooks, and it goes on and on and on. It's got a ton of things. It's a lot of features. I mean, if we're just going to jump right into it, if you're building a single page web app and it's going to be huge, it's probably going to make sense to choose React and have a team of JavaScript developers who are able to build off of this, right? If you're going to have large teams, even multiple teams that need to interact with it, you're going to get a better experience with React because it's meant for a larger project. Now, you can also do that with HTMX. It's super simple and it's just HTML everywhere, but it's not necessarily going to be ideal for a single page app. Comparing the performance, I'm going to say, obviously HTMX, it's going to win hands down. There's no way React can compete. I've seen many React applications. They're so slow. And you might say, oh, it's good enough. I mean, it's good enough, but it is very slow. Now, HTMX is essentially just HTML, and it's making API calls for you when needed to request more information. There's very little actual JavaScript occurring. It's going to be very fast. The great part about HTMX is you can embed it into existing web applications fairly easily, and it doesn't require a whole lot. You can kind of do that with React as well. There's probably no real problem with that. It will bring in a lot of JavaScript though. The community size for HTMX is smaller, but definitely growing. React is the biggest framework for JavaScript and web applications all across the web. It is the number one, essentially. And when we look at ecosystem, like availability of plugins and things like that, we don't have a whole lot with HTMX. But with React, there's, a plugin around every corner. Now we're going to see why HTMX is much better for a lot of situations, comparing this to React. Now, React, obviously, you're going to get a lot of capability, a lot of power out the door. You need a good skill set of JavaScript, and you need to understand the React ecosystem. But with HTMX, it's a lot easier. Let's take a quick look comparing HTMX versus React. And in this case, we're going to look at a simple web request, just an HTTP call, right? Like a fetch, right? We're just going to fetch data from an endpoint. And HTMX, look at how easy that is. We're able to fetch that data, and it will be able to populate that data based on an HX get. Now, if we take a look at React, it's just a little bit it's just a little bit more, a code that you need. And also, it's not just HTML, right? So you have HTML here with template, but you also have to put it into this sort of this jumble here. And you've got JavaScript, and you've got a fetch with some promises. Oh, you also have state information, although I don't know if does it require state? Yeah, it does, because you're populating templates. So you've got HTMX, just a little simple straight, and it looks clean. And then you've got React. By the way, this is one of the most common cases here. Make this pattern, right? You need to fetch data from an API, and then you're going to display it to the end user. Most common pattern. And so it's a lot nicer just to do it like this with HTMX. All right, let's really get down to it. HTMX versus React. There's very specific applications where you would really want to use one over the other. Probably, I suppose, if you're already used to React, which a lot of folks are because it's the most popular web framework available, it makes sense for you to go ahead and probably use that framework because you're proficient in it. Although, if you want to be able to include more developers, HTMX might be a way to go. Let's take a look at the use cases. HTMX is going to be best suited for projects that require simple, modern dynamic interactivity. It's a very simple web page, displaying information, fetching information, and submitting new information. That's it. The most common pattern. HTMX is lightweight, so it's going to be very fast and efficient, so it means a good user experience. It's also really powerful if you're a back-end developer and you also have to do work as a front-end developer. HTMX is going to be your favorite choice, because you don't have to learn all that JavaScript and a whole bunch of extra stuff. HTMX is going to be able to spend most of your time developing on the server. You can even do HTML server-side rendering of HTML if you want. You don't have to, but you could do it. So this is where HTMX shines. It's just overall simplicity. Now, if we're going to look at React, it's best suited for developing single-page applications and complex applications. So you might have this giant dashboard with tons of buttons and widgets and pages and tabs, right? You click on the different navigation settings. That would be probably pretty good experience for React, right? Because now you can grow a team of developers. They can each work on separate components independently and be able to contribute to a larger project. You could also do that in HTMX. However, React was purpose-built for that. For larger applications that have multiple teams interacting with it. It has been put together in such a way. It even says here also is a great option for large teams who want to reuse. You can also reuse UI components. And now if you started with React and you found out that you didn't really need to, there is an React, you can migrate from React to HTMX and will lead to 67% smaller code base. That's huge. What's this? What is this link here? All right, so we've got an example. Someone migrated to from React to HTMX on a real-world product for a SaaS product. Whoa. Okay, so SaaS products are typically going to be advanced, right? There's a lot of details. You'd think that React would be really great. However, they migrated to HTMX. They had the exact same user experience. It took 2 months to migrate 21,000 lines of code. They reduced the code base by 67%. Oh, but they increased server code by 140%. Well, but I mean, percentage-wise, sure, but that was they only basically doubled their server code. Versus, the JavaScript, 21,000 lines down to 7,000 lines. That's much better. Basically, they threw out all their JavaScript dependencies. The build time was reduced to 5 seconds. I like that. It's a lot better. Time to first load on interactivity. Yep, React is going to give you a really slow experience. You don't realize this. The web itself, just standard browsers, without you importing these giant heavyweight libraries, is really, really fast. And you can take advantage of that speed. HTMX does that really well. Oh, wow. So by using HTMX, because it is so much more efficient and more powerful than React, they were able to handle more larger data sets on the screen for users to interact with. And the web memory was reduced by almost 50%. You can see why React is significantly a much larger application, right? It's going to give you're going to need to pay attention when you're developing with React because you can quickly consume a lot of resources on the computer. Let's go through the pros and cons of HTMX versus React. Which one should you choose? Should you choose React? Probably. Well, but should you choose HTMX? You might like that one better. Let's find out. So always comparing two technologies, there's no real winner in absolute terms, right, between the two. We've got two web frameworks that are very excellent. Choosing one over the other depends on the goal of your project. If you're going to be building an application that requires state management, so sort of a heavyweight page that requires state management and components need to be aware of each other, you're probably going to go with a React type situation. Whereas a simple web app, in any other scenario, most web apps are going to be simple. HTMX is probably going to be your choice. So here's where HTMX wins. It's simple, it's HTML only based, you don't need to learn JavaScript. It takes care of the AJAX and DOM updates for you automatically. It's dynamically interactive with the HTML and you don't have to deal with JavaScript. You can integrate that into existing web pages without a problem, and it's a very lightweight library, meaning that the end users are going to have the best possible experience. React can never come anywhere near close to the performance that you would get, and the speed of that user experience is going to be unmatched. HTMX will win. React just cannot compete. The cons is that you need a backend with UI endpoints that return HTML. Oh, so it's server-side HTML rendering. So that means your backend, so you need to provide a view on top of your API to return HTML, but you can also return JSON, right? So you can say format equals HTML or format equals JSON. And so with this, you would be able to have the same API, but then you can also return HTML. We say it's relatively new because it's only been out for 4 years, right? HTMX has only been out for about 4 years. So we count that as new, comparing to React, which has been out for a decade plus. Okay, React is going to give you a full structuring of UIs with reusable components written in JSX. And that's really a major power of React. It's like the core capability of React. You can also deal with complex state management and support many other useful features. It's the most advanced and the most used front-end web library in the world. So if you choose React, you're probably gonna get like an okay, right? It is the most used and you'll have more docs on the web to be able to achieve what you're looking for. Although it's going to require a lot more effort. Facebook, Meta, they use it for most of all their products. So it's a heavily maintained and powered by billion-dollar corporation. You can use any kind of backend that you want without having to bother with your APIs. It's fully supportive of any kind of backend. So that's huge. That's really powerful. The cons of React are going to be that it is not easy to master. It's not easy to learn. You need to have a large foundation of knowledge. You need to be a software engineer. You need to have JavaScript knowledge, maybe TypeScript knowledge. And then you also need to understand how event systems work, how template engines work. You need to know a lot more to get the most out of React. It says that, I don't agree with this con. It says that it's difficult to integrate into non-JavaScript based projects. You kind of usually wouldn't, right? You would probably either going to deploy as a React Native or a React Web. And all that's going to be JavaScript. You don't really need to deal with non-JavaScript based systems. Although you could, and there is a way to do it, but it's not like you can compare that to HTMX. HTMX has nothing like that. So I would not call that a con. That's not something, I just would eliminate this as a con. I would add a con, actually. I would say it is a slower user experience and is difficult to make a very fast, performant user experience when using a React Native web framework. You might think otherwise, though it's just so prevalent. It's not like there's a go faster button. You have to know what you're doing, and it's fine that most people don't, and you shouldn't have to. The web framework should take care of that for you automatically without you having to deal with it. And so I would say that would be a con for React.